So I'm going to give you that forewarning. And we are going to begin the recording of this. And I'm going to welcome Christina and thank her very much for your time. We greatly appreciate you pulling this together for us and some other chambers in the area and presenting it to our area businesses. And as I said, we will record this and put it on our website because I know there's lots of folks that really wanted to be here. So Christina, I will turn this over to you.
Perfect. So did you see, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we are Payroll Vault. Let me switch slide, make sure everything's transitioning here. Hold on one sec. There we go. And I'm the owner of the Payroll Vault location in Jefferson County. A little bit about us is that we were founded in 2008 by Sean Manning. And we are a payroll franchise. We started franchising in 2012. We're locally owned and operated. And we have 65 locations around the US, including Hawaii and the Bahamas. We pride ourselves on being locally owned, client-focused, and payroll redefined. A little bit about us and why people choose to outsource. I won't go into details about this, but basically here are some great reasons why people choose a payroll company to do their payroll, because there's so many changing regulations all the time. So the reason why we're all here today is the Family and Medical Leave Insurance, which they're calling the FAMLI program, starts January 1st, 2023. Oops. So what is FAMLI? So back in November of 2020, Proposition 118 was voted in by the Colorado voters. It's a state-run paid family and medical leave program. FAMLI supports both employees and businesses alike when with certain life events that are going to happen with you during, like a spouse getting sick, you getting sick, family member, sexual assault, different things. There's going to be a lot of different reasons they call life events that happen that will allow them to take this leave starting in 2024. The contributions will start coming out January 1st, 2023 to fund this program. And I'll go into detail what that looks like for your businesses, but they needed this gap year to collect enough funds to be able to fund this program so that claims that start coming in 2024 will have sufficient funds to be able to pay out at that time. So it's not an opt-out program. As long as if you're a W-2 wage employee, there is no opt-out. The only opt-out is if you're a government employee or something related along those lines, and then they'll get an exemption certificate showing that they're not opting to be a part of this program, because they do have the ability as a federal entity or state entity to opt in if they are exempt. So I'll go into that here in a little bit more. This is a social insurance program. So it doesn't operate like your personal health insurance or personal savings account or anything like that. Your individual contributions are not tied to you for benefits. It's basically everybody's pitching in to be able to allow people to apply for family leave starting in 2024. So self-employed individuals, I'm going to go over that first. Participation for self-employed individual is optional. So once you decide as a self-employed individual to be a part of this program, you would be responsible for the 0.45% of the employee share of the premium. Once you opt into this program as a self-employed individual, you have to stay in for 3 years at this time. So once you make that decision, just keep in mind that you'll be required to pay in for 3 years, and then you could opt out after that time frame if you chose not to continue to be a part of it. So as a self-employed worker, you'll report either your gross income or your net earnings as a self-employed individual to determine your quarterly premium payments and your potential benefits.
Last year about
Did somebody have a question? Okay, self-employed individuals have to decide which one works best for them. So they may want to check with their accountant and see if you want to use the gross income or your net earnings. And then whatever you choose, you have to use that for the full year. So you can elect to change it during 2024 if you chose net earnings and you decide to go with gross income in 2024. At the beginning of the year, you can elect to change that. But once you decide in 2023 which one you use, you have to stick with it for a full year. So just so you know, FAMLI may opt to do an audit if you're a self-employed individual. And if they decide to do one, the things that they're going to require for an audit to make sure you're paying in your share of the portion is tax returns, bank records, self-attestations, or any other documents that are deemed necessary by the division to determine if your income that you were electing did cover the amount that you contributed for that year. Okay, next we'll go over employers who have employees 10 or more in 2022. So how that's determined is if you employed 10 or more employees in 2022, and what they're looking at is they had to be employed 20 weeks during that 2022 timeframe to determine your head count, to determine whether you had the 10 or more employees. If you have 10 or more employees, there's going to be a 0.9% share that needs to be paid in. Of that, 0.45% is paid by the employer, and the other 0.45% is paid by the employee. The employer may choose to pay both sides of the premium if they choose to, but that is definitely up to the employer if they choose to do that or not. In determining your head count, you also have to take into account if you have multi-state employees. So what I mean by that is if you have 2 people who work in California and 2 people who work in Texas and the rest work here in Colorado, you have to add up every person that's employed by the business, whether they're in the state or not, to determine your head count and what your liability is. But once you've determined your liability, you only withhold on the Colorado employees only. If you have 9 or fewer employees during 2022, the employee will only contribute 0.45%. There'll be no employer match. So it'll just be the employee contributing. And the state has given employers the ability to pay the employee side if they choose to. So that's definitely up to the employer as well. This little chart goes over who is covered by what. And if you're a local government, you have the option to opt in or not. So this little chart's great for determining where you are.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
We have, I'm with Bergen Park Church, and 2 of our employees are pastors. And the accountant and I, when we were reading through it, we figured that the pastors didn't count. Is that correct in counting your employees? Do you know?
I would definitely go to family.colorado.gov and use the phone number and call and ask, because I'm not sure if they're getting a W-2, I would think that they would be in the head count, but I would definitely just double check on that one.
Okay, there's a phone number there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, make sure I covered everything on this.
Christina, you've got a couple more questions in the chat.
Oh, sure. I can't see the chat, so.
Okay, so Tammy wants to know, is a self-employed individual considered a sole proprietor Schedule C?
That if you're paying an estimated taxes and not running payroll, then you are considered a self-employed individual. If you are earning or getting a W-2 at the end of each year and you're considered an S Corp or a C Corp, then you would be considered part of this program.
The next question is Truson. It's not Monica, it's Truson. And I think, that's okay. He posted it earlier. So I think the answer to his question came up after he typed it. His question was, what if I help hire contract labor, because he's a caterer? He owns a catering company. So I'm assuming it's if you add up their aggregate from what they worked for you in 2022, if that comes out to 20 or more weeks, then you have to count them.
Contract labor is a 1099, so they do not count, are not considered employees of the business. So if you have 1099s, they're not part of your head count. It's only individuals that are earning W-2 wages that you give a W-2 for at the end of the year.
Great, thank you. And then Katie asked, can you change if we want to match after January 1st, or is how you designated on January 1st for the entire year?
So you would start off, if you're not sure what you're going to do, you would start off collecting from the employee and the employer if you're matching. If you changed, you know, I think if you change your mind, it would be fine, because you would just not contribute any or take any more contributions out of the employees to paycheck. You would just cover the full amount as the employer. I don't think they care how it comes out, as long as it's getting paid in and accounted for with the gross wages that are being made. On the self-employed, it does matter, but on the employer, as long as you determine that and make sure the wages are paid in. One thing I do want to point out, though, is if for any reason you forget to take the payroll tax out of their check starting January 1st, 2023, once you do figure that out and you're behind, you cannot go back and collect it from the employee. You would be responsible as the employer for the previous payrolls that you did not collect on. But going forward, you can make that adjustment and fix it, but you just cannot go back and collect premiums that you didn't collect from January 1st to whatever time you figured out you weren't doing it.
So that's an important detail if you are handling your own payroll, if you're not having a service do it for you.
Okay, so do we have any more questions on this slide?
I think we've gotten them all.
No, there it goes. Okay, so this slide, I'm going to move this bar out of the way. This slide shows what wages would be included in the family premiums on how you calculate. And the second side is the wages that are not that are exempt from family premiums. So just make sure you understand, if you're doing your own payroll, what wages are included in family and what wages are not included in the family premiums. And you can find that information on family.colorado.gov. This is just a quick breakout of what we were able to obtain. I also wanted to show you a sample of a paycheck, what that will look like. So in this instance, this person's making $5,000 a month. Because one cafeteria plan 125s are exempt, meaning that they'll take away your gross wage from those pre-tax deductions for medical. They're taking that minus the health insurance to collect the family premium here. But they do not allow 401k retirement to be deducted from your gross wages to calculate the family premium. It's only those pre-tax deductions that were listed on the previous page and that you can get off the website. And then just a note, again, employers cannot collect missed premiums from employees in a later period. Okay, so as an employer, if you're with a payroll company, your payroll company can assist you in most cases with getting your ID number. Some of them are working through getting approved their formats so that they can submit one file and get all the IDs at once. So, but if they can't, they should let you know that you need to apply for your own ID number, or if you're doing your own payroll, you would need to make sure you have this information when you're registering online for an account. You're going to want to make sure you know your business legal name, your federal identification number, your primary location, and how many employees did you have in 2022, making sure you know your head count. And then also any additional users that would need to get into that account, you need to know who they are so you can give them access when you're applying for your account number.
So I've got a question real quickly, Christina, just so that if there is anyone on this call that is doing their own payroll, businesses, quote unquote, because it's nonprofits as well, all need to be registered on the state website by the end of this year? Question mark.
That's the best time to do it, but I mean, obviously they're going to be taking registrations through the first quarter because your payment's not due till April, the end of April. So you can keep registering after the end of December. It's just optimal to do it now because they're going to get flooded. So if you can do it now, you probably want to do it now.
And so again, if anyone is doing it on their own, you take these deductions at each pay period, and then you make one payment the end of the month following the end of a quarter.
Correct. Just like you do your unemployment. It's going to be paid very similar to that.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. I jumped on a couple minutes late. I apologize. Is this something that so I do my own payroll. Is this something that QuickBooks has, and I just need to go and find it?
I'm not familiar with QuickBooks, but I would assume that they're either building the integration or working on the integration because they do payroll in Colorado. So I'm assuming they'll have that ability at some point.
This is Tammy with BookSense, and yes, QuickBooks Payroll has already implemented their payroll item setup. So you would go into payroll items and it'll walk you through the wizard for setting this up.
Okay, thank you. And
You're
then
welcome.
we have to do that before. So like my employee pay periods are like the 30th and the 15th. So for the 15th, that first paycheck of the year, I would need to go in and do it before the end of this year then, I assume, right? So it starts collecting on the 1st?
Right. Well, you would do it after your last 2022 paycheck and before your first 2023 paycheck.
Okay. Thank you. And you also said that it's a system a lot like Colorado unemployment. So do we go to the family.colorado.gov to pay to pay the money in, or how does that work?
It depends. I'm not sure how you're set up on QuickBooks. I know some QuickBooks allow for you to make payments through the system and it's integrated. But if it's not integrated, then yes, you would need to go to family.colorado.gov. And when you set up an account, you'll have a username and password, and you'd be able to fill out the forms and pay the premium there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next slide. This is just kind of a timeline of what that looks like. So the registration's open now through basically March 31st. Obviously the sooner the better, getting your ID number and making sure you're in compliance. But definitely the sooner, getting that ID number would be great. Starting January 1st, 2023, make sure you're collecting the correct amount out of the employee's check if you're going to collect from them. If you're an employer and you want to pay that half of the premium, then you just need to either let your payroll person know so they can make sure they collect that properly, or make those adjustments on your side if you're doing your own payroll. But just if you're going to collect from the employee, make sure you start doing that from your first payroll in January 2023. Like I said, the first payments will be due April 28th, 2023. That's the last business day. I recommend paying it on that day, but I think because it falls over a weekend, you could possibly pay that following day, but I just put April 28th, 2023 on here. And then also employees can start applying for claims in the 4th quarter of 2023, like if they know they're going to be out due to a baby or elective surgery or something like that. And then I just put a slide on what that looks like, where you go to get your account number and get the login.
So we'll be using the same location for obtaining this ID number, as well as then making our quarterly payments?
Yes, that's what I've been told. Okay, so next, just a little bit of overview from what this program will look like for employees. So basically, once The claims are able to be submitted fourth quarter 2023 for 2024. Colorado workers who've earned $2,500 over the previous year for work performed in Colorado can file for their medical leave benefit. The qualifying conditions for an employee to file for that would be caring for a new child during the first year of birth, adoption, or foster care replacement of that child, caring for a family member with a serious health condition, or yourself if you have a serious health condition, making arrangements for a family who are going to be deployed, and then obtaining safe housing, care, or legal assistance in response to intimate partner violence, stalking, sexual assault, or sexual abuse. So those are the guidelines for applying for leave in 2024 for employees. Basically, 2024 claims, once they've applied and been approved by the state for their claim, they'll get up to 12 weeks of leave. And if they have a complication during pregnancy and childbirth, they can get an additional 4 weeks for a total of 16. The leave can be taken continuously, intermittently, or in the form of a reduced work schedule. So keep that in mind as an employer. You have to be accommodating if they are able to do this and accommodate them appropriately. Family wage replacement will be paid up to 90% of the employee's average weekly wage. Benefits will be calculated on a sliding scale, with lower income earners getting 90% and then going from there. The benefits will be capped at $1,100 per week. And then I put a little chart in here of what it currently looks like if you file a claim and where you would fall in and how much you would get. So a person earning $500 or more, or $500 or less, would get 90%, whereas somebody earning $3,000 a week would get the capped at $1,100, and they're basically getting 37% of their wages. Employees need to provide notice to their employer 30 days prior to taking leave if there's a reason, it's a predictable cause. Sometimes things happen and there's no way they could give you 30 days notice, and the state understands that, and then that would be something that you would not have to get notification on. But they also have 30 days after they've taken leave to apply for these benefits. So basically, Colorado's following the FMLA federal rules. So if you've employed someone for 180 days or more, they are entitled to job security under the law, which means that if they take family leave, they still can have their position back and or a comparable position at comparable wages when they return after family leave. If they've been employed 180 days or less, then you don't have to follow those guidelines, but they're still entitled to take family leave, even if they haven't been employed that long with you. And I would, if you don't know all the details about the legal restrictions as an employer, it's very important if you know someone in HR or you have an HR representative that you talk to them about all of those implications. And then while they're gone, they're entitled to the same health benefits they had when they were employed with you if they've been with you 180 days or more. So just make sure that you keep those health benefits in place. If they choose to do that, they can keep paying those premiums while they're out. That's the basic overview of the program. So I was going to leave it open for any questions people might have at this point.
I have a random question. Is there anything that we need to post in our business for employees about this change, or
yes,
just kind of like we have to do for, you know, unemployment and stuff like that?
Yeah, so if you have a payroll company, you should be getting, if you have signed up for the poster replacement program, you should be getting your updated poster in January. But in the interim, there is a break room poster that you can post that's on the family.colorado.gov website that you can post until you get your new posters in January, early February. And then also you need to put out this paycheck stuffer that goes over the program to your employees, and you need to make sure they have that information prior to their January 1st year. So now's the time to print those out, email those out, however you choose to do it. Just make sure they get this payroll stuffer explaining that this tax is coming into play January 1st, 2023, and that they'll be expected to pay in the 0.45% premium of their wages towards this program.
And Kristen and everyone else on this call, we will have links to all of these documents in the Tuesday email blast that we send out tomorrow morning, and then subsequent weeks, on into the new year, since we know not everyone's going to jump on it tomorrow. And I did see another question down below from Truson about, are part-time employees entitled to benefits?
Yes, so any employee, part-time, full-time, seasonal, has to pay into the program and is eligible for the program.
And I skipped over Josie's question because it takes us down a different path to the conversation we were having earlier, Christina. Okay. Her question is there a retirement contribution requirement that also goes into effect? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, so starting January 1st, 2023, there is a Colorado state mandated retirement plan for 5 or more employees. So they did extend that a little bit for smaller employers to get plans in place. So it was January 1st, 2023, but now if you're 24 and under employees, they're giving you till 4th quarter of 2023 to get a plan in place. You can get a state fund in place. There's a state retirement plan in place. You can go get with a financial advisor to put a plan in place. And I believe Nancy mentioned the, oh no, that was your personal, sorry, the company itself. So, so you need to get with a financial advisor or the state if you wanted to set something in place before 4th quarter if you're under 24 employees. If you're over 25 or more employees, that date's been pushed out a little bit, but I believe you have to have that plan in place by 2nd quarter for 25 or more employees for retirement. And
so I'm sorry, go right ahead.
As an employer, this is not that you have to match the contribution in any way, shape, or form. This is just a retirement plan that needs to be put in place that employee will be automatically opted into. And the state's saying 5% is the automatic contribution if they do not elect anything different or opt out of the program once the plan's in place.
So a lot of new things to keep us all on our toes. And if you have any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to kind of walk you through what I know a little bit to make me dangerous, or to point you to other more valuable resources. Any other questions, Kristen?
Thank you both. Oh, no, I was just going to say thank you both. Appreciate it.
No problem. Happy to. All right. Well, then we are going to give you back the last 25 minutes of this hour to go get something else accomplished. Thank you all. Have a great holiday season.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.